Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
We have a really great guest today. His name is Joel Greene, and I don't do tons of interviews because I really want it to be relevant to what we do and to what I talk about. And I want stuff that really works. And when I found Joel Greene's book called The Immunity Code, I remember when I was reading it, I got so excited. I haven't felt that excited about a book in a long time. And I was excited because he lays things out. It's a pretty intense book, but it's really well laid out. He gives you little things to do, but I have had some of the biggest changes from doing his little protocols that aren't even that hard to do and aren't even that big and long. But the science behind it is just, it's so exciting to me. And I'm thrilled to have him. So let me tell you who Joel Greene is. First, he's the author of The Immunity Code, which is a book, which is a new book on approach to eccentric immune system, immune-centric health, 3 years in the making. Joel went on to author the very first article on the gut biome to the health and fitness community in 2007, which is very exciting to me. And he has the largest known body of outcomes in the world targeting body composition via the gut with over 16,000 since 2009. He has consulted with billion-dollar nutrition companies like Quest Nutrition on complex problems like engineering food to extend lifespan. And his work has been featured on Dr. Phil, top-tier publications like Muscle and Fitness and CBS Online. But the real proof is in the pudding. I think your body's your best teacher. That's what I think. And I think when you understand the power of food and what it can do to your body, which you have laid out really well, I'm so excited. So let's get started. In the very beginning, in your first chapter, you talk about healing and sealing the gut, and you give these little things that you can do. And the first thing you talk about is feeding a particular bacteria that helps heal and seal the gut. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, that bacteria is, first of all, thank you for the glowing intro. I'll probably put it on Instagram. Yeah. But yeah, so the very first thing that I have you do in the book is target the bacteria Akkermansia mucinilpha. And Akkermansia mucinilpha is, it's a kind of a newer discovery. Until the Immunity Code came out, no one really outside of like science circles had ever heard of it. I remember sitting down with Ron Penna, who's the founder of Quest Nutrition, before the Immunity Code was published, and just talking about some of the concepts in there. And Akkermansia, that came up, and he goes, "You are the only second person I've ever heard of this from, ever." Actually, the first I ever heard it from. So once the Immunity Code came out, knowledge of this bacteria started to spread, and now you see a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon. But essentially, the reason it's the very first thing in the book that you begin to go after, you begin to create. Essentially, what you're doing is you're creating a brand new checkbox. The very first thing on this brand new list of to-dos is Akkermansia. And the reason for that is very, very compelling when we dig into it. So it turns out Akkermansia is what's called a mucin forager. So basically, like, it eats spit. That's the best way to think of it. It eats mucus. It eats mucins.
The lining of the gut. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, and also very telling long term about dietary protocols and how they affect your health. So the key thing to understand about Akkermansia is that if you took mucus and you broke it down into what it is, it's what's called a glycoprotein, or a protein that's bound to very long chain sugars. It's mostly sugars, but with the protein bound to it. So what Akkermansia does is it cleaves the sugars off and eats the protein, and that's what it eats, is the proteins. And so you could say that Akkermansia is on an all-protein diet, a high-protein diet. That's kind of what it lives on. But what's really interesting is that it prefers proteins, in other words, mucus, that is not from the diet, but instead secreted internally. So, like, think about your mouth. Your mouth secretes mucus all day long. Those are internal mucus secretions. They don't depend necessarily on diet. And that's Akkermansia's preferred diet. So a couple of like interesting things to understand about Akkermansia. One is that it is intrinsically entwined with maximal human health, and that we seem to see these very strong correlations with Akkermansia, the presence of it in very lean people and healthy people, and the exact opposite in kind of conditions like obesity. But what's really interesting is it has a number of very specific effects on metabolism and energy intake. One of the most notable is that it actually shrinks the surface area of the gut. It contracts the surface area of the gut. And so as a result, Akkermansia works like a calorie dial. In effect, it is able to dial back the energy that you actually take in from the diet by contracting the surface area of the gut. So it's able to change the equation from calories in, calories out to calories absorbed. And it's able to impact that quite dramatically. And so for that reason, one of the things about it that is quite fascinating is when you have an abundance of Akkermansia, you harvest fewer calories in the gut. And along with that, the very next thing that I had you target in the book was bifidobacteria, because those two bacteria are very complementary. Very complementary. They, one of the ways they complement each other is they both make a very special protein. Humans make a protein when we're fasting called fasting-induced adipose factor. And basically this protein, it increases the rate of fat oxidation. Well, it turns out that both Akkermansia and bifidobacteria make the same protein. And so what these two bacteria kind of in concert are able to do is they're able to increase the rate of fat oxidation in the body. So right away, like right up front, you have two very important factors tied to not just body composition, but human health, which is being able to contract the surface area of the gut, being able to increase fat oxidation. And then along with that, Akkermansia also has, both Akkermansia and bifidobacteria have very pronounced effects on glucose metabolism and insulin sensitivity by a number of mechanisms. So basically, long story short, what the immunity code does is it gives you a new way of thinking about how you approach your health. Right. And in the old approach, what we did was, we had to, go buy some gym clothes and get on the treadmill. And that was the first thing on the box, the first box you check. But a newer way of thinking about the problem is really going right at these things that control things like the calorie dial. And Akkermansia is one of those. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation, which I tend to be, but that kind of succinctly says it, I think.
Well, I love the work that you talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the gut lining is only like the size of a half of a hair strand. It's very thin. Is that correct? Is that
sure. Yeah, I believe.
I don't know if that's true, but it's very thin. So you want to seal and heal the gut is one of the things that I find so important, not just for or weight loss or for anything, because once that gut is healed and you have a lot of bifidobacteria, which you call the young bacteria, which I love, which I agree with 100%. You also talked about how it helps with food allergies, which I've seen in my line of work. Once you put back or establish the right gut bacteria, food allergies tend to go away. And I've seen that over and over and over again, not only personally with my 16-year-old daughter 20 years ago, but with the hundreds of people that I help or thousands of people that we help with in our business. You put the right bacteria in, and those food allergies, we've demonized so many foods, and every year it changes. A long time ago, eggs were bad, and then fats were bad, and now fats are good. And then, do you know what I'm saying? There's a constant, and you just wait it out, and it all changes. But one thing I do know is that if you don't have the proper gut bacteria, you have food allergies, and I've seen that. And you did a lot of research on that, on how that having bifido can help with gluten and dairy and things like that, which I have seen prevalent in my work. And I've done your protocols because you teach people how to build bifidobacteria, which, by the way, is just something I did with my whole family. And it's really interesting after you taught people to do it with food, which I love. I love how you do that. And when I did that, I noticed changes in my older kids. They were like, my son, who has never liked dairy in his life, was craving it and having no problems when he used to. For years, he's gotten rid of food allergies for many years, but I really saw profound changes in every single person in my family, doing some of your easy protocols in the beginning. And I don't want to give it away because I want people to buy your book because it was easy and fun to do. If you could explain a little bit more about that, I really would enjoy that.
Yeah, gosh, you really hit on something so profoundly important, and it's a complete shift in the way that we have thought about everything, really. I talked about really in the book that we have done a gestalt. We have created this. We've put this one thing in the foreground and this one thing in the background. The thing in the foreground is, oh, it's the foods, and that's led to an entire way of exclusionary thinking, where well, these foods are bad, and those foods are bad, but these are good, yay! And really, the truth is that we had it completely backwards. It was always wrong. The real truth is that it was never really the foods for the most part. It's the bacteria that's missing. And it's linked to a really fascinating concept. In the book, I did my best to do a chapter on this called the 3 genomes. Mm-hmm. And there's a massive flaw running through a very large body of thought with respect to dietary protocols and nutrition and genomics. And it's the idea that the human genome controls everything. And that is a lesser truth. Much more true is that you have 3 genomes inside you. They're completely different. And it's the interaction of those 3 genomes that will define what I call the active operating state of the body. And that active operating state is an outcome reflected by the interplay of these 3 genomes. So the really fascinating idea is that you can acquire the genes you need to digest foods by acquiring the bacteria, because the bacterial genome has significantly more horsepower, much more horsepower to digest many types of foods than the human genome, particularly when you look at carbohydrate metabolism. So you see a lot of diseases, you see a lot of conditions, you see a lot of issues related to carbohydrate metabolism. And we created all these sort of concepts around what's correct, like FODMAP diets and things like that are all about just avoiding things. But anybody that wants to kind of do these protocols can really quickly establish, like, for themselves that, oh, wow, you can make massive changes very fast by just growing certain species of bacteria in the gut. And so you see things like gluten intolerance completely gone, or milk allergy completely gone, or even affecting things like Parkinson's and things like that. You can see massive changes really fast by just shifting the gut biome and acquiring the genes you need to digest certain foods. And so it's a paradigm shift. It gets us out of this, what I call in the book, kind of reductionistic baby talk of, like, well, these are good.
Yes, this is good. Let's take out this food group, and let's take out that food group. And I've seen that throughout the years. It's always something new going on. But I want to talk to you about one thing, because you mentioned the Parkinson, and that in the book was one of the things that made me do a protocol that you called the daisy cutter. Mm. And I decided I was going to do that. And you said it was pretty hard. It was, I have to tell you. I thought I could do that. That's not that hard. And it was, but I had you talked about, I would love to hear you tell the story about your brother. And then I want to tell you the story of what happened to me after only doing it for 3 days. And I was really, really surprised at, I've done a lot of things in my life. I do have a good gut microbiome. That's what I do for a living. But I was really shocked after I did your little protocol that just for 3 days, I couldn't do it the whole week. You're hardcore. I couldn't do it. But you would tell the story about your brother and what that is. I would love to expound on that after you're done.
Yeah. Well, I have a brother who has Down syndrome. And it's kind of funny when you see us together, because, like, our features are the same. We both have dark hair and light eyes, but and we're only 18 months apart. But, like, he's 4'10", and so it's been this. He's just the sweetest, most pure soul you'll ever meet in your life, and very, very special soul. And he, right about 20 2018, he started to come down with Parkinson's, and he was in a group home up in San Jose, and I would bring him down to be with me, a few times a year, particularly Christmas, for a few weeks. And I brought him down. I think it was probably I think it was either 2018 or 2019. And when I picked him up, I couldn't believe the difference. Like, I mean, the old person wasn't even there. He just, it had progressed so fast that he couldn't even walk 25 yards. Like, I took him into an AM PM driving back on the 5 from San Jose, and he collapsed after about 20 yards. Couldn't walk. I mean, he was so weak, and the Parkinson's had affected him. And so, I got him home, and I literally threw everything I know to do at him. And the change was so fast and so dramatic that I'll try and pull it up here. Actually, I think I even have it. I could show it to you here. So within 4 days, like, he was almost back to 100% normal. Like 5 days, he was a brand new person, and I threw everything at the gut that I knew to do, so like, everything that's in the immunity code, I just threw at him, throwing all the right combinations of foods and red phenols and HMOs and everything. And needless to say, there's this massive interaction between the gut and Parkinson's symptomology. It's not everything. There's other things that can affect Parkinson's, like the spine and issues in the brain and things like that. But a huge vector is the gut. So he was, within 5 days, like, we took him out to the store, and he literally ran off. He literally, he felt so energetic. He started running down the aisles, and his personality completely changed. And so it was pretty powerful. So that's what's possible. And I've actually got it on video here. I'm going to try and just dig it up here and see if I can find it. But yeah,
and that was after 5 days of doing the thing. And it really isn't very hard. It's not a lot of different things. You just have to make up your mind you're going to do it. But one of the things I love that you say is you should do it to show yourself the power of food. And I thought I'll do that. I don't think it'll be that profound, but Joel, okay, so I did your protocol for 3 days. Mm-hmm. And so I did the protocol, which is basically you're eating a lot of raw green beans, okay, which and I found some really good ones, by the way, because the smaller they are, the easier they are to eat. And then there was salads, and there's a lot of stuff that basically, as you say, because you're basically a feeding tube, right? Your gut and your what you eat, it goes in, and it goes around the circumference of the gut and just completely establishes a new microbiome, because you're just feeding it in such a massive way that it's, what did you call it? It's like a centrifugal thing that goes around and completely coats the inside of your gut.
It's like a brush. You're taking in a bolus that is so big. What it does is, the gut is a tube, and so you paint the tube from the inside out by stretching it out in 360 degrees, and it's like a paintbrush going through the tube.
And it's just food, and even if you just do it for 1 day. But anyway, I did it for 3 days, and at the end of 3 days, and I'm 61, so I had so much energy. I went to Home Depot, and those little paper bricks that are like 12 by 12? I got 150 of them and made a sidewalk next to my pool with gravel. And my husband came down and put him in the truck. Got him home, unloaded him, took him with wheelbarrows down to my pool, fixed it all up. I had so much energy after that. I was doing stuff, and my husband were like, "What's the matter with you?" And I just didn't expect to have that much energy. It was literally, I skyrocketed, and that's addictive to me. Do you know what I mean? To have so much energy, and it was just food. Do you know what I mean? And
it's so amazing. Yeah,
it amazing. Was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I thought, okay, well, that probably worked for, I don't know. But you were so excited, but you said, just show yourself the power. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do that. And I thought I'd do it for a week. That didn't last so long. That's hard to do for a week. You did it for a week. I was impressed. But even just 1 day can make a difference. And
it's really amazing. It's really amazing the power of food. It's like, if you haven't experienced it before, what food is capable of doing, you're missing out, because when you really experience the power of food by using very specific combinations of things in certain ways and certain timing and stuff like that, and the power of food is unleashed. I have experienced exactly what you're talking about, and I've seen it, in many other people. It's absolutely astounding what food can do. It's more powerful than any drug.
And you know what? I don't think people really feel good. I don't think they know what that's like.
Mm-mm.
I don't think they know what it's like to feel good all the time. They're missing out on life because they don't even know what that is. And I've always felt really good and had a lot of energy, but just the fact that it got amped up was so exciting to me that it kind of was like, oh, see, this I'm all over this. And you have like a 2-day protocol for longevity, and I really, really think we need that, because a lot of people don't understand how good they could really feel, and if they did, they'd never go back. You would never go back to that life you used to have. Do you know what I'm saying? And that happened to me when I found, I teach people about cultured foods and how to make them. And I think they're so much better for you than supplements, because they're food and they work like food. And I transformed 20 years ago with them. I had diabetes and high blood pressure and all these problems. And literally it just transformed, not just me and my whole family, but as I've gotten older, I love the fact that I feel young. Do you know what I'm saying? But then I did that, and I was like, oh, there's another level to this. And the energy is this. I felt like I was 25 again.
That's exactly how I describe it. When I first did the Daisy Cutter back in 2006, 2007, that's exactly how I felt. It was like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm 20 again. Wow, this is amazing.
Yeah. And I did do your other protocols. I did the HMOs to feed the bifido, and I did the red phenols, which I still do to this day, because that we need to talk about too, because that is amazing. I hadn't done that till you talked about that. I've got so many people doing that now, because the red phenol powders, which I'd love you to explain about, but that's something I do every single day because I love them, and I've seen a real big difference with them for everybody in my family. Mm-hmm. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's part of the new to do. So so what we're doing is we're creating a new to-do list that is non-time intensive and very powerful. So the whole immunity code is really about rethinking what we do for our body and then coming up with a better list that's non-time intensive. So you go out right after the very most important things to give the biggest bang for the buck, that take the least time. So after we address kind of necromancy of the bifidobacteria, kind of the next step really to kind of keep the train rolling is red phenol powder combined with human milk oligosaccharides. And human milk oligosaccharides are sugars in mother's milk that you get. They're in mother's breast milk, and they give you immunity as a kid. They give you your very first dose of the bifidobacteria. And then the red phenols are food. The red phenols are food, not for you, but for bifidobacteria and necromantia. And essentially, it's just a very energetic protocol, because the bacteria in our gut live and die very quickly. Like you can change the gut out in 3-4 days, either direction. You can go the wrong direction in 3 or 4 days, change the whole gut out to a dysbiotic profile, or in 3-4 days you can change it to a really, really healthy superhuman protocol. And a lot of it just depends on the food, the substrate that you're giving. So the red phenols have a lot of different compounds in them that basically work to feed either Akkermansia or bifidobacteria. And the energy is the result of basically these bacteria are very good at making B vitamins in the gut, and they're very good at restoring like the levels of B vitamin production that we had when we were kids. So one of the components you hear about energy a lot is that, oh gosh, my metabolism is going in the tank. Well, that's true, but another piece that's equally true is that you're not making the B vitamins you were when you were a kid. And when you were a kid, you were bouncing off the walls 24/7, right, because you had all this bifidobacteria in the gut making crazy amounts of B vitamins. And so that's controllable. Like you can dial that up immediately and then dial your energy up from that. And again, it's just food. It's just using food.
It really doesn't matter that you're getting older as long as you feed that, right? Because it will help. Does that work that way? I mean, as you get older, it diminishes. The fit diminishes. Is that what you said in your book? And when you're young, it's like the first few days. That's what colonizes. And is that correct?
It's definitely one of the major vectors. There's about there's a handful of major vectors that diminish with age that sink the ship. And it's kind of like imagine a ship with as it's going along, a big load is getting on the front deck and it's starting to pull the bow under the water. And so, one of the biggest things you can do is just restore these bacteria to the way they were when you were young. And it's like it just lifts the bow of the ship up, and all of a sudden, you're cruising faster. There's definitely other ones. There's hormonal production, NAD production, generally the decline of ATP, and all these other things that are really one thing. And what I created in the book was a way of eating that addresses all of those things. And I have a new book coming out here next year called The Immunity Code Diet, which is going to be an expansion of the dietary thing. So
that's great. I know I look at your Instagram all the time, and I love that you share stuff that you get from Trader Joe's, because I love Trader Joe's too. And you make it so easy, because those are pretty fast foods that you're getting there, but they're super good for you. They feed your gut. And I like how you just share a lot of what you do on a regular basis, which helps me too. That helps, give you ideas. Because sometimes, that's the beauty of it all. Once you understand how to make this a part of your life, because I love how you addressed in your book that nobody's going to do a perfect diet all the time. They're just not going to do it. Something's going to happen in your life where you're going to get thrown off for, there's just so much going on in people's lives, just as you grow older, people where, there's deaths and there's, moving and stresses that come about with your life that, sometimes you're just not going to be perfect all the time. And you address that, and you make stuff that's so doable. Now, I'm not going to kid you, your book is intense, but it is laid out so well. I love how you give little things to do in the sections. And it's not something, I've read it twice, just so you know. And I have it all. Look, I'll show you. I've got a million. Look at this. This is your book. I've got it all. Because look how worn it is. We have a boat down in San Diego, and they make fun of me because I take your book down there. Are you still reading that guy's book? I said, yes, because I go down there every weekend. Instead of being out, I sit on the front of it and I just read it, because I'll read it in little tiny pieces at a time. And it's so funny because you know what? Here's the thing. If you learn something and you can't explain it to somebody else, you haven't learned it. So you put it in small enough sections that you can pick it up a little bit at a time and learn it. And once you can explain it to somebody else, then because this is the age of information. There's almost too much information out there. But once you take something and make it a part of your life and do those protocols and they work, then you get feedback. And then you keep going and you keep learning and you keep doing it. And that's what I like about your book. You make that pretty easy to do. So there's a lot of information, but it is pretty epic. You're the man. That's what I told my husband. He said, he's laughing. He said, he's the man. He's actually got it going on because it actually has worked for me. So, and I was actually in pretty good shape to begin with. But I just think this is a great book for longevity. It's great if you want to lose weight. It's great if you want to get in shape, change your gut, change your food allergies. It's just packed with all kinds of things. I'm excited about your new book. Do you know when that's coming out?
I'm shooting for end of January, so I'm hoping I'm going to be able to make that. I think I will, because it's not as sciencey as the first one. It's more just really just dealing with the diet portion and expanding upon that. So
yeah,
I think
will help people a lot. Books aren't easy to write, I'll tell you that. But they're really well worth it. It's just. Do you think you'll do an audio on this? Do you think you'll ever get an audio book for this?
For the new book?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's an audio for the immunity code as well.
There is? I didn't think there was. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just go to veepnutrition.com and you can get it there.
Okay, yeah. It's not like on Amazon. The book is
no, I'll probably stick it on Amazon here once the new book comes out. Okay. But you kind of have to hack the system as an author, because it's not set up for authors. It's set up for Amazon to win, and it's set up for consumers, but it's not set up for authors. So
I agree with you 100% on that. So yeah, I've gotten 3 books out that, and it's really interesting to me how the whole thing works. It took me a while to figure out the system, you know what I'm saying? And then I decided I didn't want to be part of the system, you know what I'm saying? Because I really wanted to help people. I really wanted to do, but I didn't want to jump through all the hoops. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know, the promotions and then it was just, anyway, that's a long story. But there's a lot of information that I think is so necessary. Like, you talk about the health and nutrition people use baby talk. And there's not a lot out there that's concrete anymore. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just, there's so much information. But for immunity right now, I think this is so important.
What's interesting is the unintended effects are really starting to snowball.
Yes.
One of those is that there's some really good research coming out now about COVID, and that you really need high levels of bifidobacteria in order to prevent COVID onset, and that's very protective. So when you combine high levels of bifidobacteria, it drives immunity in the gut, it prevents COVID onset. And so a lot of the things that were in the book, particularly like the diet and all that stuff, are actually going to have a lot of legs long term, because one of the things that I talked about in the book was that essentially the consumer is mostly bamboozled these days, because they don't know what to think. And there are a lot of dietary protocols that just aren't even based on what's really true about the body, and so you can do these things for a couple of years, but they're based on a flawed idea that the way to health is through extremes, and that never bears out ever. It never has, it never will. So what the Immunity Code did was it took kind of the convo to a new level, which was, let's get beyond the good and the bad. These foods are good, those foods are bad. No, it's not really that. Change the bacteria, and that's not really true. But more importantly, let's look at how we can sequence in time and combine foods with fasting and other things to get very functional effects to age better and keep the body young. And so that's a new conversation. So
yeah, and I really think that's so important, because honestly, it's really been fun, because I've lived a long time and I've seen stuff come and go, and I've tried a lot of things, especially when I was younger, and they work for a while and then they stop working because they're not complete in that. And everybody is different. Everybody has different things, but the ability to change the microbiome, and not just that, but longevity there's a whole conversation about that you address a lot in your book, that I think is going to be one of the key factors in not just longevity, but in immunity and how powerful the body is and what it does. And we just don't understand it. People don't understand how powerful our own bodies are and what they can do for us. And once they get a taste of it, it's addictive. Do you know what I'm saying? And you want that. And you do a really good job of setting it up in different ways. You've got the 2-day core community. Is it called core? Is it 2-day that you can do twice a week, that I do, that I love. Actually, I really like that. That really does make profound changes in the body in just a couple days a week. And I've seen it, I lived it, and I'm just excited. I really want people to know about this, because when they feel good, they do good. Do you know what I mean? When people feel that, when they don't feel good, they don't understand what it's like. You get critical and judgmental of people, but when you feel good, all you want to do is give. Do you know what I mean? You just want to give. You want to help people because you feel good. You have something to give. Do you know what I'm saying? When you don't feel good, you don't have any reserves to give to other people because you're in survival mode. Do you know what I mean?
That is profound.
Yeah.
That's very profound. You're true. You're right. When you feel good, all you want to do is give. I'm going to use that on my Instagram today. If you don't mind.
It's true, though, because you stop the judgment. You just think, oh, but you could feel so good. Do you know what I'm saying? You could help your body, and you could be less afraid, and you could just, because honestly, the chains fall off when you understand how things work. And when you can control things in your body and you can give it the things it needs, it affects your mind, it affects your energy level, it affects your longevity, it affects diseases, and your body's just waiting for that. Do you know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. One of the things that I did not expect when I got healthy many years ago, and then this happened again when I did was the joy. I couldn't believe how good the well-being I felt. It is so contagious. Do you know what I mean? I want people to feel that. They don't feel that. Wellness is not the norm. It's the exception. And I want it to be the norm. Do you know what I mean? Because people have forgotten who they are and they don't understand it. So your book has so much information that will help people to feel good. And when they feel good, everything changes. So they go out of survival mode and they go into, I could help you because you become a light. Even if you never tell anybody. I wasn't going to tell anybody about the stuff I was doing. That didn't work out very well. But it just, you know what I'm saying? It just snowballed. People just kept bugging me. And I didn't want to write books, and I didn't want to have a website, and I didn't want to do that, but I just felt so good, and I couldn't stand to see them struggle. When they got better, they told their friends, and it snowballed. And you've done a great job. You have a lot more accolades than this book, but it was profound for me, Joel. And I don't say that to a lot of people, but I'm excited about what you've done, and I want to promote it because it has meant the world to me. So I really appreciate it. Did you ever get that video of your brother? Did it load or?
Oh, you know what? I have to dig through so many files. I'll send it to you. I'll send it. I need to post it on Instagram. I'll post it on Instagram as well. I think people want to see it. So
I really appreciate it. There's so much I want to talk to you about, and maybe we'll do this again. But I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and what you're doing, and I think it's important work. And I'm gonna keep reading your book.
Thank you so much. Gosh, you've been dropping all these profound. I'm like gonna go write them all down. Like, yeah.
Well, honestly, you do that, and you have way more understanding of the things than I do, and I find that just so much fun to learn, and I'm enjoying it. But I hope that people will get your book and try some of the little protocols and things that you do that are easy to do, and watch their bodies change and watch their energy levels go up. And you have a whole huge section we didn't even touch on about weight loss that I thought was one of the most profound things I've read, especially when you talked about losing weight was an immune response, and nobody's talking about that. And it made so much sense, the science behind it. So that's another topic for another day, but I really appreciate you. And thank you for taking the time to come on. It means the world to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your feedback. It means the world. And yeah, we'll do it again for sure.
Okay. Thanks a bunch, Joel. You have a great day, and I'm looking forward to your new book coming out. And if you tell us where we can find you at, just the immunity code on your website.
Oh, yeah. Veepnutrition.com, and then you can find me on Instagram at Real Joel Greene, and then the book's on Amazon under the immunity code. And then we have also the immune-centric fat loss course at Veep Nutrition, which is first of its kind in the world, and over 1,000 people this year have done it so far. Incredible results. Definitely give that a try. And yeah, so
and I'll have all those links. I'll put those links in the description so people can find it. So you keep up good work up, and thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
All righty. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.